In this video, I'm going to cover the main reasons why your past attempts to invest in fixing your body and getting back to performing the way you used to have failed. And it's not because you're some special little unicorn with these unsolvable problems. It's not because you have any genetic predispositions. It's not because you're unlucky. No, it's simply because whatever you tried that failed was missing these key factors that I'm going to cover in this video that make or break your success when it comes to eliminating recurring pain and injuries and getting back to your sport, going as hard and as often as you want. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to understand exactly why it was that you weren't able to see that success. And obviously on the other end of that, how to successfully get back to your athletic prime totally pain-free. And you won't need to waste any more money on any of these solutions that only treat the symptoms and don't actually solve the core issue. And trust me, I've been there before. I know exactly what that's like because I've wasted a ton of time, energy, and money trying to fix my body in the past. But once I started paying attention to the keys that I'm about to drop in this video, my pain melted away. My movement started feeling more fluid and effortless. And I didn't get the same old flare-ups that used to hold me back. And because my body actually felt good, because I properly rebuilt my body's foundation, I can now chase my dream of competing in the Olympics with zero hesitation. And so without further ado, let's get into those main things that are going to give you the success that you want and that you deserve when it comes to fixing your body and getting back to your peak performance. Okay, first things first, when you're looking for a solution that is going to help you actually fix your body and not just put band-aids on the symptoms that you have, it needs to have an assessment. And in a lot of cases, this isn't even done at all. Like, how can you expect to solve a problem if you don't even understand what's wrong? The human body is crazy complex. And so you need to dig into those complexities if you're to fully understand what's wrong and then actually fix the problem at its root. One of my favorite quotes by Albert Einstein is just epitomizing this, saying that if he had an hour to solve a problem, he'd spend the first 50 minutes breaking it down and then the last 10 actually building the solution. A lot of coaches, a lot of programs I see out there do the complete opposite. They spend a couple minutes understanding you, if that, and then it's like, okay, yeah, here's the solution. It's like, oh, your knee hurts? Oh yeah, like your VMO must be weak and this must need to be stretched and XYZ, but like, there's so many different kinds of knee pain. There's so many different causes of that knee pain. A lot of factors that play into it that aren't just the knee itself, but all these other areas of the chain that can be contributing. So it's like, if you didn't take the time to really assess me in that holistic way, which brings us to our next point, then how can you actually understand what's wrong? And if you don't actually understand what's wrong, how can you give me a solution that is going to last long term? And that brings us into the next point, is that these solutions often don't assess basic qualities of movement like balance and core stability, which can, in my experience, play a huge role in no matter what pain or injuries you have, no matter where it is in your body. Back pain, there's a lot of research that shows that low back pain is actually closely correlated with balance. So it's just so critical that in the assessment process, somebody actually takes a look at things like balance to really see where you're at with that, because sometimes it might be as simple as, oh wow, your balance is completely off. We just need to fix that. And I want to give you guys quickly a framework for thinking about training and really just filling the gaps in your body overall. It's like you have this pie chart and it basically creates the total of you, right, of your athleticism, of your fitness, of your health overall. Let's just say that pie chart is a complete version of all of those things. Now, there's going to be some things in that pie chart that are lagging behind the others. For instance, you will have some people are really bad balance wise. You have some people that are really bad core stability wise. You have some people that have a ton of tension in their body, so their flexibility is not where it needs to be. Then for most people, it's just overall functionality, execution of movement patterns. Some people, it's just simply strength in some certain areas of their body and strength in certain movement patterns. So I should have probably made a visual of this, but I hope you guys can see that a lot of times people are going to have different proportions of these different factors. And it's important that to be a balanced human, to be a pain-free, high-functioning human, you want to have all of those categories filled and proportional to each other. And that's how you're going to see the best outcomes. But again, if we don't truly evaluate based on all of those outcomes in a holistic way, or all of those different pieces in a holistic way, then there's no way I can know that, oh, wow, the missing link for you truly is just balance. If we just simply work on some balance things, that's going to give you the best bang for your buck. It's going to save you a ton of time. It's going to save me as a coach a ton of frustration, and we're going to get to your result fast. So it's really that simple, just evaluating how the whole body connects in a holistic way. And that brings me to the next point, which is really understanding that the entire body is connected as a unit. So for instance, some people will, again, I kind of alluded to this before, make the conclusion that because your knee hurts, the VMO is inactive. But they'll fail to realize how, let's say, the hip positioning and your foot ankle alignment contribute to the lack of VMO activity. Because if my knee isn't properly positioned because my pelvis is tilted one way and then my feet are dumping into pronation, dumping inwards because my feet are flat, then I can strengthen the VMO all I want, but it's never going to get better. And so you need to make sure you understand that the whole body is one piece, and you have to take a look at every single step, every single piece of that chain. And that brings us to the next point, which is essentially just making sure that you hit all these checkpoints. And a lot of these programs, again, a lot of these solutions out there, a lot of these coaches or whatever, they miss these key checkpoints, like the positioning of the spine, your foot and ankle posture, the positioning of your rib cage and how that connects to your pelvis. All those things are so relevant for any injury. It doesn't matter whether it's your shoulder, your hip, your knee, your foot. All of these things that I just mentioned, plus a few more, are absolutely critical that you assess. And if you don't, then you might be seeing some short-term relief. You might get back to play for a little bit, but it's just a matter of time before something else breaks. And if you want to continue operating on that paradigm of, well, I can fix this short term and I'll just wait for the next thing to break. I'll just fix the next issue when it comes up, as opposed to, okay, why don't I just, fix these issues for good? If you want to do that, then sure. But if that's not what you want, then you need to have a solution with a proper assessment in this regard. And the next thing is that these solutions don't actually assess dynamic movement. So maybe they'll look at your posture, but it'll just be static posture. And this only gives us a fraction of what we need to see in order to understand what it is that you really need working on. And so we need to assess movements that are more dynamic and have similarities to real life and sport movement to actually expose your issues. And so the last point of this is that no reassessment is done as you go. And this is crucial because the body is constantly changing. And so reassessment is just really, really important for making those proper adjustments to your program. So that's the assessment, guys. If your solution doesn't have an assessment, then like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's already like game over, to be honest. If you want a long-term solution. Now, if it has an assessment and it doesn't cover these areas to make it holistic, then that's also a problem. Now, the second piece of this is that these solutions fail to bridge the gap between therapy and performance. And what do I mean by that? So the best rehab programs have elements of training like progressive overload, and the best training programs consider factors like your joint health and your muscle function and all those important factors to ensure that you're actually feeling good and that your body is overall functional and healthy. You need both of these to build a truly resilient body that performs on command. You really can't separate the two. I mean, the industry does try and separate the two. They try and give you the therapy in the physical therapy, the physio offices, the chiros. They try and give you the therapy and then just throw you out to the strength and conditioning coaches to then just build athleticism on top of that foundation that is just shaky. The foundation was just essentially just patched up instead of truly being fixed, doing the hard work to get to the root of those foundational issues so that then we can naturally progress and build athletic qualities on top in a way that's actually going to be sustainable, in a way that's actually going to lead to longevity down the line. And so a lot of these programs are simply just based on activating certain muscles or doing mobility and flexibility just for the sake of those qualities instead of fitting it into the bigger picture of preparing the body for intense activities. And so you end up just getting better at exercises, all these mobility exercises, all these strength through length exercises. You're not actually making the body more resilient. You're just getting better at those exercises. And so it's really, really crucial that we understand the principles that are going to transfer from the work that we're doing in a training setting all the way up to our sport. And a great example of this is hip extension. And so a lot of people will just kind of let the shin pitch backwards. I'll maybe make a video on this one of these days, but they'll let the shin pitch backwards as they're unhinging their hips. Like, let's say they're doing some kind of hip hinge, some kind of single leg RDL, the shin will pitch backwards, but that's not what we see in sport. What we see is that the shin moves forwards and then the femur rotates forward through the shin as well. So both of them are moving forward, because if my shin moves back relative to my body, then I'm going to be braking. I'm putting on the brakes whenever my shins are angled negatively. They're angled to my backside. So in doing a hinge, and this is something that I do with all my clients, I teach them how to hinge while keeping the shin fixed in a forward position. And that will get their posterior chain going like they've never had it before. I have people shaking like a leaf, just holding isometric positions because they're bent at the hip, truly loading their glutes, truly loading their hamstrings because, again, of that shin position. So that's just an example of how you need to, in order to bridge the gap between therapy and performance, how you need to actually position your body and more so utilize these principles of movement that truly transfer to sport. And I just don't see that often in a lot of these solutions out there. And so the last piece of this, in terms of bridging that gap, is to ramp up the intensity in a way that would be relevant for sport. That's another thing. Like, you see a lot of physical therapy of therapists make jokes about this all the time, how they just prescribe these clamshells and these band pull aparts and these little stretches and all these things that, again, they might give some short-term relief, but they're never going to prepare you for the demands of sport. That would just be silly to think that those low intensity exercises could actually prepare you for the high intensity demands of sport. That's just never going to happen. Last point here, and we'll finish this up, guys. So it's essentially that whoever made the program or the solution or whatever it is that failed you, they don't actually walk the walk. How can you expect that somebody can show you something if they haven't really done it themselves? Most people going into these solutions, going into programs, coaching, mentoring, they, in my opinion, have it all backwards. It's like they're looking for instructions, step-by-step how-tos, and they're looking for specific things instead of looking for that coach or mentor's paradigms, the way that they view things and the energy that they truly embody. And so to hopefully bring this home, I'm going to give you a little like way of thinking about this, that so that you can understand, number one, how to get the most out of programs, and number two, you'll kind of be able to see who is really about their stuff, who is really on it, who is really going to give you the results that you want. So the first level of this hierarchy, the lowest level, is tactics. That's essentially like, okay, like, do this. Like, for instance, if you had a nutrition plan that you were following, it's like the tactics are, okay, eat this, and eat this. Those are tactics, the specifics. Now, the next level is strategy. It's like, okay, you're going to eat this, and this, but you're going to eat it at this time. You're going to make sure that you're eating this first meal after having a glass of water. You want to make sure you're properly hydrated throughout the day. And you're going to have this plan for when you go on vacation. So those are all strategies. It's a little bit of a step above the tactics. Now, next is principles. Principles are great. So principles in this scenario would be like, okay, like, sure, like you know what to eat, you know when to eat it. Well, now let me give you the understanding of why I told you those things, so that when something changes or when you need to basically come up with something on the fly, you can now do that on your own and still operate within the way that I would have had you do things. So the principles are essentially the underlying why, the patterns behind why the strategies, why the tactics work. And so the last thing here, the highest level, is the actual essence of the coach. This one is hard to put this into words, but it's essentially the energy you pick up from subtle things like the tonality they use, the body language they use, and all these mannerisms and other discrete things that you may lose if you're overly concerned with the nitty-gritty of things. And so it's really important to choose a mentor whose life you can actually see yourself living, and who actually walks the walk in terms of the results that you want to get. Because again, if somebody hasn't gotten the results that you want, how can you expect them to teach you the same thing? And so that wraps up this video, guys. This is essentially these are the main points that I look at whenever I'm assessing somebody else's solution. It's what I tell anybody I speak to, whether they want to work with me or not. I just want them to understand and be informed, armed with the right information to make the best decision for themselves, because I'm not best for everybody. I don't say or claim that I am. I just know that there are some basic principles that are going to lend towards a solution's efficacy and success in getting to the root of the issue and actually getting you to where you want to go. And so, if you do feel like I'm the right type of person for you, the right type of coach for you, and you want my specific help to essentially get you from being in pain, feeling like your body's broken down and like you're not able to do the activities, do the sports that you used to do totally problem free, and you want to go from that to being able to essentially use your body, train however the hell, whenever the hell you want, then book in a call below. We'll chat it up, see if it does actually make sense, and then we'll get to work. We'll get you assessed. We'll actually fill the proper gaps in your foundation, and then we'll make sure that we ramp you back up into sport to, like I said in the video, bridge that gap between therapy and performance. And that way you're going to have a clean transition so that you're never having to go back to the therapy side of things because we progressed you too fast. That's the worst thing that I see, is that people progress too fast. They throw themselves back into it without having that proper bridge, and then they end up right where they started, hurt, injured, not able to perform the way they want to. So again, guys, if you want my help creating that proper bridge, making that transition so that you don't ever have to see any kind of therapist or physio ever again, then book in a call below and we'll chat it up and we'll get you right. See you guys in the next one.